Well, good morning. What a difference a week makes, huh? The governor has finally conceded that taxes have consequences. The governor's heard from Minnesotans that high taxes result in less jobs for Minnesotans. And we agree. I mean, I think that's a real bipartisan message this week. We agree that high taxes result in lower job opportunities for Minnesotans. And we appreciate the fact that the governor has listened to Minnesotans and has taken these B2B taxes off the table. And the governor's reversal is further evidence that your voice can make a difference here in St. Paul. We hope Minnesotans will also be heard on the rest of the DFL's regressive tax proposals. And the question remains that since the DFL majorities and the leadership have voted to endorse the governor's original tax proposal just over a week ago, whether or not they too will agree with the Republican minority and the governor. The Democrats' health care exchange bill passed the House this week, and it seems that everyone by now has heard that this exchange results in more cost, less choice, and no privacy. Well, everyone except for the DFL majorities and my DFL colleagues. There was bipartisan opposition in the House to the bill, and we are thankful for that. We're thankful that some DFLers listened. And Governor Dayton himself, as you heard earlier on NPR this week, has called this a gamble. And again, in the spirit of bipartisanship, we agree with the governor on that one. We think the health care exchange is a big gamble. And this is the first tax increase that's been passed by the DFL majorities this session, but all indications are that it won't be the last. And if you get haircuts, use an ATM, are a teenage babysitter, or even like to have an occasional glass of beer every now and then, the DFL has a tax for you this session. The forced unionization of child care providers also passed a House committee this week, and Minnesotans who have built businesses that care for our youngest Minnesotans will have something in common with those who are going to be forced into the Democrats' health care exchange, and that is less choice, more cost, and less quality. Less choice for Minnesota families with very limited means, less quality as a result of taxpayer dollars being diverted to support union coffers and polarizing partisan activities, instead of on Minnesota kids, where this money should be going. And more cost, as some providers, as they testified in committee this week, will decide to close their doors instead of being forced into a union environment. Testimony on this bill really was quite extraordinary if you didn't hear it, as providers pleaded with committee members to allow them the freedom to decide their own destiny. So on tap for next week. We're expecting a revised budget from the governor that recognizes the positive budget forecast of last week. And we join our fellow Minnesotans in asking the governor to call off his $3.7 billion tax increase and prioritize the state's spending. With $1 billion in new revenue without touching the tax rates and $2 billion surplus, we can fund Minnesota priorities without raising taxes on an already overburdened Minnesota taxpayer. Finally, we agree with Minnesotans, and again call on the governor and the DFL majorities to pay back this school shift and to present Minnesotans with a true budget that doesn't have gimmicks and doesn't have shifts. Thank you. Senator Hann?
We did, as Representative Woodard say, we had the same kind of issues in the Senate. We did want to this morning give an opportunity to two of our leaders on the health exchange issue to be with you this morning to talk a little bit about the debate and the process. Played a key role, and just to give you a little bit more of an opportunity to have some insight in what happened. And so I'd like to invite Senators Benson and Rosen to talk about that.
Well, good morning. As you can see, it takes 3 senators to equal 1 representative. So we had a very spirited debate. I'm not sure if all of you were there yesterday, but 12 hours, I think that did make it one of the longest debates that I've seen in my 11 years. And as I said before, we tried very hard. I stood up at that press conference on January 9th in a bipartisan fashion with great hopes of working on a bill that would be the best for Minnesota, and we failed on that. As Representative Woodard said, there was much to that bill that we cannot accept. It's not accountable, and there's many unanswered questions. I believe there was 44 amendments that were delivered, 102 or 3 at the desk, and they accepted 14. we worked very hard in all of our committees to try and adjust and make that bill better, so it could be a bipartisan bill, and it could be workable for our citizens. But I'm not holding out any great illusions of it coming out of conference committee any better than what it is right now. I'm just hope and pray that it will work, and I'm sure we will be seeing it back here at the Capitol. Sorry, Benson.
Thank you. And the long debate that we had last night was really a reflection of how significant this change is in Minnesota. It's not because we were trying to drag it out. It's not because we were trying to slow things down. It was because there are significant concerns about governance. Senator Rosen had very relevant, focused amendments that would give more legislative control over this very powerful board. Senator Newman focused on rulemaking that would not slow down the board's decision-making, but give citizens the opportunity to review and have input on the rules that were going to be impacting their health care. We talked about the financing mechanism that's going to leave a hole in our general fund, and there's no plan to fill it. And so as we move forward, I hope that the conference committee will listen very closely to the debate that was in the committees, the debate that was on the floor, and come out with something that can be good for Minnesota. And I think if they do, they could earn Republican support. Some Republicans could support if there are significant changes. But if it comes out looking like it went in, it will remain a DFL exchange.
Do any Republicans expect to be on the conference committee? You know, the House had one Republican vote yes. His motives were to get on a conference committee. Are you concerned you won't be at the table?
Well, I did have that conversation with Senator Laurie, and I said I certainly would not enjoy, that's probably a little strong. I would work on that conference committee to make it a better bill, but I was not going to vote for the bill. I could not do it. He said he wouldn't do that. Although, you know, it's a rule of thumb that you have to vote for the bill going out, but I have seen that before where you can be appointed without voting for the bill. So if they happen to come by today and say, would you like to be on the conference committee, I'll say absolutely.
But did any Republicans earn the right to be on the conference committee?
I think if anybody did, I did.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, or Senator Benson. But I believe there was not one Democrat amendment in committees on that bill, and certainly not one yesterday.
I think the thing that's a little bit unusual to me about this is that this would have been the easiest bill in the world to have bipartisan support on. We had not all Republicans, clearly, but many Republicans, House and Senate, who expressed a lot of willingness to work with the Democrats and create a bipartisan bill. And there was a lot of support outside of the legislature from the business community who said, we support the idea of an exchange. We want to work with the majorities to do it. And they laid out some pretty clear ideas about what had to be in the exchange to make that so. And all those ideas were brought in amendments, both in committees and on the floor, and every one of those amendments was rejected. And so it was very clear that the Democrats came into this process from the get-go with a vision of what this was going to be, and they were committed to driving that through the process without taking any deviation from that path. And so to us, it seems very clear that they did not want this to be bipartisan. They did not want this to be anything but their version of a bill that is very narrow in its, philosophical scope, and clearly not possible for this to be viewed by Republicans as an opportunity for us to act in a bipartisan way, although many wanted to do so. And I think Senator Rosen is clearly one. And we hope that there will be a change of heart, but typically when you have two bills going to a conference committee, there's sort of compromise. And when you look at the two bills, it's hard to see how anything comes out of that is going to be appealing, but we'll see.
Senator Hann, could you talk a little bit about your reaction to Dayton backing away from the business-to-business?
Well, I frankly was a little surprised because I think it leaves a huge hole in his revenue projections, and I haven't seen his revised budget, of course, but we're very encouraged by that. We were joking a little bit before, maybe he's going to join our caucus, and he's welcome to do so, I guess. Maybe he's becoming a Republican, but we have heard it just as the Democrats have heard, uniformly across the state, loudly, clearly, that these taxes are a killer. And you can't say that you're for business, you're for job growth, you're for economic growth, and put these kind of taxes on the economy. And I think even the sales taxes themselves pose the same kind of problem. And I don't know if he's backed away from the whole sales tax entirely, but clearly the business-to-business piece, very, very damaging. And that's the biggest chunk of the revenue that he's trying to raise. So we are encouraged by that. We hope that means that he's going to perhaps scale back his expectations for spending and perhaps even take the approach that we did 2 years ago of trying to manage the budget within the parameters of available revenue. We think that would be a good idea. Maybe he'll go that far. We don't know yet.
Can I say something?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you, Senator.
I found an interesting comment by Representative Thiessen about how the business community can accept the fourth tier, and that's not what I'm hearing out there. I'm hearing that it's like, how much can you throw at them? And the B2B, the business to business, was the biggest elephant in this room. So of course they focused on their attention, but these subchapter S corporations, they're very concerned about this fourth tier. And I can guarantee you there are many that are looking for their exit strategy right at this point. So it's just how much can you take on? And, of course, they focus their attention on the business-to-business tax.
Are you saying the fourth tier that is going to become sort of the new frontier for criticism on this proposal?
It should be looked at very critically, and we should make sure that what the ramifications of that tax going forward is going to be significant. But yes, of course, the business-to-business got a lot of attention, but the fourth tier got a lot of attention last year. And that is a major part of a small business moving forward and wanting to expand and grow in this state.
Can we jump ahead to next week? And I'm just wanting thoughts on the same-sex marriage legislation in each body on Tuesday, and your thoughts on the kind of debate you're expecting in committee.
Well, I don't know what the votes are. I don't count the votes for the other side, so I have no idea what their plan is. We think it's a little odd that they're proceeding on this before they've even introduced their budget bills. We haven't seen the DFL legislative budget bills, and they're already proceeding on a same-sex marriage issue, which strikes us as a little odd in terms of priority. We think it's the wrong priority. We think they ought to focus on the budget. They ought to get the budget done. They ought to get the budget passed, and but they're pursuing this, I think, pretty aggressively. And but I don't know what the votes are. I don't know what the expectation is on their side.
Yeah, in the House, they'll be hearing that bill as well in civil law next week. And, we agree that it's a little odd that this is being put forward as a priority by the DFL. There was a rally for marriage yesterday in the Rotunda that drew quite a few Minnesotans. We know from the last election this is a pretty divisive issue, and it's an interesting tack for them to take, that they want to prioritize this over getting the budget done.
Senator Hann, do you have any meetings with the governor before Tuesday?
Before next Tuesday? I don't think I have anything scheduled, but we may try to have an opportunity to talk with him. I'd like to, if possible, find out what his thinking might be, but we don't have anything scheduled.
What would you tell him if you could talk to him before he releases his budget update?
Well, we've been pretty consistent, both publicly and in private, that we would suggest to him, respectfully, that there are a lot of things you can do without raising the kind of tax burdens that he's proposed, and I think Senator Rosen is exactly right. I've heard the same things. The business-to-business portion of his plan has gotten a lot of attention because it has been the most burdensome, but every person I've talked to that's talked about that has also talked about the fourth-tier income tax as being burdensome and unnecessary from the standpoint of not helpful to the economy. And so really I think that what I would suggest is, Governor, what are the things that are really the priority that you want to do, and can you not do them in a more modest way in terms of revenue? Can we not do these things without putting such large burdens on an economy that is struggling to grow? That's what I would suggest.
Nothing new, though, than what you've told him in the past.
Well, what we've been telling him in the past seems to be every time we tell him those things, you get a better forecast, or you get, the pushback on the things we've been telling him, we seem to get confirmation from outside facts. And so we're going to keep telling him those things because we think the reality of the real world is going to confirm those things.
Senator, do you think we'll now hear more criticism about the fourth tier than we have been?
Well, I think, as Senator Rosen has said, the businesses are concerned about these taxes, not just the business-to-business, but the fourth tier. And I think that these things are additional burdens on an economy that is already struggling. We are generating more revenue as the economy continues to grow. Our focus has been to continue to do things to encourage that growth. We don't think additional taxes are helpful. We think trying to restrain the growth of spending, reform what we are doing, make it more effective, those are what we ought to be focused on. And that's what we're going to continue to urge and counsel our friends on the other side to work on. And we'll help them. If they want to pursue that path, we're going to be right there, bipartisanly, working with them to do that.
And if I could just add to that commentary, I mean, that's absolutely right. But let's not lose sight of the fact that small businesses are still affected by these sales taxes. So Brad's Barbershop in Belle Plaine, Minnesota, is now going to have a mechanism to create a sales tax collection process. Randy Woodard's babysitting service, according to Commissioner Showalter, will require her to have a system in place to collect taxes for the state of Minnesota. It makes no sense. We can't lose sight of the fact that these sales tax increases that the governor is talking about impact small businesses and are about as regressive as you can get. If you look at the Suits Index on regressive tax policy, this is about the worst thing you can do for middle class and lower class Minnesotans. This is not the right approach when it comes to our tax policy, and we hope the governor does listen to that. I would love to sit down with the governor and talk through what this means to a family in Belle Plaine, Minnesota, his sales tax increases. You know, it's not just about the fourth tier. It's not just about the business to business. This is about small business. This is about Main Street, Minnesota, and Main Street Minnesotans. And this hurts. He recognizes that taxes have consequences. He said that this week. So why on earth wouldn't he look at why these taxes don't have the same consequences, in fact, even more regressive consequences on Main Street businesses and Main Street Minnesotans?
So you're assuming that he keeps those in?
Well, I haven't heard that he's not going to, and it's $2.1 billion out of his $3.7 billion tax increase. So if he's not going to do that, what is he going to do? And so I would say I'm living up to what he has committed to in the past. And I know a little bit earlier somebody mentioned, this was the governor's best swing at it. I think Minnesotans deserve a governor that doesn't just put the best swing at it, that actually does something and has a true budget that doesn't have these shifts and gimmicks. He doesn't pay back the school shift. I mean, this is not what Minnesotans expect from the governor's budget proposal. I understand changes are going to happen and that this is a dialogue. But at the end of the day, just a swing at it, that's not good enough.